Most banana bread is basically just refined empty sugars. Or it's healthy, which means that it tastes bleh, and it's still full of phytic acid and a lot of other anti-nutrients. But it doesn't have to be this way, because I've spent months perfecting my recipe to get a perfect spongy texture, a delicious taste, and it still packs a really powerful nutritional punch. So without further ado, we're gonna make some banana bread. Let's get to it. Hey everybody, my name is Dennis and I've spent 10 years and thousands of hours researching nutrition and applying it to my from scratch cooking. Whole wheat flour contains anti-nutrients, most notably phytic acid, and it prevents your body from absorbing minerals and utilizing enzymes. They can't be used by your body unless you soak the flour. So what we're gonna do here is I'm gonna show you how to soak the flour, and it's not that difficult. You just need to start it a little bit in advance. I'm gonna start the process today, and then tomorrow I'm actually gonna finish the process. So right here I've got my bananas. I always use organic bananas because the flavor is a lot better and you're not dealing with some of the processes that they put the non-organic bananas through. As you can see, these are really ripe, and that is what we want. The riper the better. You can go all the way until they're really black and just kind of falling apart. I've got my bananas in the mixer. I'm using the paddle attachment. You can also mash the bananas by hand, but this goes a lot faster and it makes them really smooth. I'm gonna mash the bananas until no lumps or only very small lumps remain. Now that the bananas are mashed, I'm gonna add my fresh raw milk. You can also use sour raw milk if you want, and that'll actually help the soaking process along. And I'm gonna add a little bit of apple cider vinegar. And the vinegar is really important. The acid is going to activate the flour and reduce those anti-nutrients. And lastly, I'm gonna add my whole wheat flour and then just mix this up so that it's combined. It doesn't have to mix for long, and it should look about like this when it's done. So you can see kind of a little bit of banana pieces in there, but the flour is fully mixed in. At this point, I'm gonna take a slightly dampened kitchen towel and just cover this whole thing. I've made it damp so that it helps keep the mixture very moist throughout the soaking time. But we're gonna leave this for 24 hours to let the enzymes be activated in the flour, and it's gonna break down the phytic acid and the anti-nutrients, and it's gonna make the whole thing a whole lot more digestible, and it's gonna make it so that the minerals in here are gonna be absorbed by your body. There's not gonna be anti-nutrients blocking those minerals from being absorbed. So I'm gonna let this go 24 hours, and I will see you tomorrow. All right, this has been soaking for about 20 hours. It's the next day, and you can clearly see that because I'm wearing a different shirt. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna get rid of this towel. We don't really need this anymore. If you look in here, you can see the stuff on top has actually turned a darker color. That's normal. If you just think about it, when you leave a banana overnight open, it gets dark and discolored. Same thing is happening here. It's not something to worry about. My next step is actually to start the oven preheating, and I'm gonna set that to 350 degrees. Now I'm gonna take a standard size loaf pan. You can also use 2 small loaf pans if you want half-size bread loaves. And I need to butter this, but I also need to melt butter for the next step. So I'm gonna kill 2 birds with 1 stone, and I'm gonna put my butter in here to melt, and then that'll help coat it. Use 1.5 sticks of butter. I'm gonna cut this one with just a little bit more than half of a stick, because we also need to account for the butter that's gonna stick to the sides of the pan. The butter I'm using today is organic, and it comes from pasture-raised cows. Now that's really important why it comes from pasture-raised cows, but I don't wanna get into it now because I actually already did a video talking about how you can find quality butter at the grocery store. While the oven is preheating, we're gonna stick the pan of butter in there so that it can melt, and we'll need it in a second. But in the meantime, let's get to the eggs and sugar. For this next step, I'm gonna use a large mixing bowl and a hand whisk. You can also use an electric mixer if you like. I'm gonna crack 2 pastured eggs into here, and if you wanna learn about how you can find quality eggs at the grocery store, check out my video on that topic as well. I'll put links in the description to all of my videos that I reference. I'm gonna beat these eggs until smooth and we see some small bubbles. Next, I'm gonna add some whole cane sugar. It's really important that you use unrefined whole sugar because refined sugar, either brown sugar or white sugar, it's really low in the vitamins and minerals necessary to digest sugar. So what ends up happening is it depletes your body of your mineral and vitamin stores. And then it causes a whole host of health problems from tooth decay to obesity and diabetes. Keep whisking until a lot of the sugar is dissolved and you can start to draw shapes with the drippings. Next, I've got a handful of ingredients that I'm going to throw in here, including cinnamon, baking powder, cream of tartar, vanilla, and salt. Give that a good mixing, and once thoroughly combined, pour the mixture in with the bananas and flour. And don't forget to lick your utensils because this is basically just sugar and cinnamon. And this is the point where you remember that you have butter in the oven and that you should have added that butter to the egg mixture before mixing it in with the flour, but you think to yourself, well, this will probably be fine. But first, I'm gonna carefully tip this butter all directions so that it coats the sides of the pan without actually pouring any butter out. Now that I've got my melted butter, I should be adding it to the egg and sugar mixture and then whisking it before my cinnamon and other small ingredients, but we're gonna wing it. I'm gonna mix everything together and see how it turns out. Scraping the sides of the bowl halfway through. And in case you're wondering, yes, that is the same spatula I licked earlier, but it's gonna bake, so we're fine, right? Plus, I've never really believed in germs anyway. Now that our batter is thoroughly combined, we're gonna pour it into our buttered dish and set it in the oven for about 70 minutes. After 70 minutes in the oven, I'm gonna check the bread by sticking a toothpick into the center and making sure it comes out clean. Now, it will come out with maybe a couple breadcrumbs on there, but as long as it's not gooey, you should be good. At this point, it should be done. We just need to give it about 10 minutes or so to cool down so that when we cut into it, it doesn't steam, because that's all the moisture, which means that our bread is gonna be dry. Now, it's already been going about 10 minutes, so I'm gonna give it maybe 5, maybe 10 more minutes, just until it's to the point where I can hold my hands on the side. It can still be a little bit warm, but it shouldn't be super hot. Once it's cooled enough, carefully slide a knife all around the edges just to make sure that there's nothing stuck to the sides. And now I'm gonna carefully turn out the loaf with my fingers positioned to catch it. You might see a little bit of steam coming off, but as long as it's not a whole lot, you should be fine. Now all that's left is to slice it, and then we can eat. And just as I suspected, it's delicious. If you got value out of this video, make sure you hit the like button. And if you want more wholesome recipe tutorials, like where I teach you how to make the chicken broth that's boiling behind me, check out my channel and subscribe for kitchen tools, nutritious cooking, and healthy living. That's about it.